626. Now, unfortunately, back to Barack, Milhouse, Benito, Obama. You know, the leftists, they live a lie. The Obamas live a lie. They live like a king and a queen, and the children like princesses, as so many do on the left. They're enormously wealthy, not because they've actually created anything or invented anything or built anything or processed anything, because of their fame, having been in public office, because of their celebrity as a result of fawning media coverage. And they've cashed in. They're overpaid for books that they didn't write. Netflix, run by a leftist, they take the Obamas under their wing, and you can go on and on and on. And while they make an enormous amount of money, literally doing almost nothing, slapping their brand on stuff, at the same time, at exactly the same time, they can trash our country. Now imagine you're able to get wealthy by trashing our country. And then you can claim to be moral people and principled people when you're living a lie. You're hypocrites. And that, of course, defines Mr. and Mrs. Obama. Hypocrites. That defines Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski. Hypocrites. That defines all of these people. Now, Obama has decided to keep lashing out against Trump. Trump has kicked his ass in virtually every one of these Senate races and gubernatorial races that Obama has gotten involved in. And by the way, that's par for the course with Obama. 1,000 Democrats lost their seats while Obama was president of the United States. 1,000 Democrats across the country, sea to shining sea. He became president, let's be honest, because John McCain was a horrendous candidate. And Mitt Romney was a horrendous candidate. And Mitt Romney is now a senator from Utah, or soon to be, and he's already staked out his number one issue. You know what it is, Mr. Producer? Climate change. And Mitt Romney wants to gain fame with CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times and the Washington Post as being a pain in Trump's butt. Now, how does this help the country? All of us who supported this guy against Obama are going to have our regrets. It's never that hot on Romney, frankly. But he couldn't beat Obama, and Obama was beatable. And McCain couldn't beat Obama, and Obama was beatable. This is what the rhinos always do to us. The rhinos, they leave the border open even when they control Congress. Even when they control Congress. Anyway, here's Barack, Milhouse, Benito, Obama. And not one of the nasty things he said will be criticized by anybody in the media. By media, I mean the phony news hacks. Where am I now? Cut 12, go.
Climate change, we're going to have to come up with some new technologies to solve the problem.
Now, don't you love guys like this? We're going to have to come up with new technology. He's coming up with nothing. What's he coming up with? Not coming up with anything. He's a demagogue. He's a blowhard. We're going to have to, come up with new technologies, as we need to, because, can't have the climate changing. It's too warm. It's too cold. The oceans are too high. The oceans are too low. The Amazon is depleting. The Amazon is overgrowing. And we can't have this kind of, movement and when it comes to the climate. And so what we need to do is have new technologies. And we need to cut emissions by 30, 40, 80, 112%. And while we're doing that, we need to have free college. We need to eliminate all debt, just dismiss it. We need to have open borders. Anybody who wants to come here, of course, should be able to come here. And I mean, after all, they're doing jobs Americans won't do, particularly MS-13. And the parade, I don't even call it a caravan, These are human beings. They're not illegal. the parade that's coming toward us. So we should embrace these people. And if they're poor, we should give them welfare. If they're rich, then we should take their money. If they're violent, we should put them in rehab programs. We are our mother's keeper, and we're citizens of the globe. And besides, this is a nation that was founded in racism and white privilege and hatred, and we need to address that. Right, honey? Well, that's right. And meanwhile, Michelle and I are privileged to be community activists worth what now, about $100 million, and to be preaching soft Marxism, to be attacking capitalism while we take millions and millions out of capitalism, and of course preaching about government-run Soviet-style iron-fisted centralized health care. Well, of course, we get the best health care that money can buy. We want to talk about our poor communities, we just don't want to live in them. We have a home in Washington, D.C. We don't live with the riffraff. No. As a matter of fact, we build a wall around our home. And Trump wants to build a wall around our country because he's a racist. But we want to build a wall around our home, and in fact did. But we're not racists. We're the opposite of racists, of course. And anyway, let's listen to the idiot. Go ahead.
Need to. Although even on something like that, right now I could take off-the-shelf existing technologies. We could reduce carbon emissions by, let's say, 30%.
What the hell? You have no damn idea what the hell you're talking. We can take existing technologies right off the shelf, right there, Radio Shack. Right off the shelf. And we can cut carbon emissions by, let's say, 30%. Oh, yeah, it's true. They have all kinds of newfangled technologies out there. And all you have to do is know what you're doing. All you have to do is order people around, pass laws, punish them if they don't listen, fine them, imprison them. All these new technologies right off the shelf. Just that the climate deniers, the white privilege, racist climate deniers, they stand in the way. Go ahead.
Without any, it's not like we'd all have to go back to caves and, live off, fire.
Yeah, it's not like we have to, rub sticks together to get fire or live in caves like all of us. Remember, all of us used to live in caves. No, we don't have to do that anymore. Just buy it off the shelf. Any shelf, just any store. Go to an auto store, the new technology to reduce cuts right there. It's right there. And maybe even at the 7-Eleven, they have stuff on the right next to the ruffles have ridges. There's the new technology. All we have to do is add it. And, we can cut emissions by 30%. If these white privileged capitalist pigs would just get out of the way, we could do this. Go ahead.
We could have electricity and smartphones and all that stuff, which would buy us probably another 20, 30 years for that technological breakthrough.
Yes, now, obviously, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I have never actually been educated in any of these areas that I'm rambling on about. But it sounds good. And the media, I have them in my back pocket. I have them in my front pocket. Michelle has them in her purse. And so I just twirl these words around. And then, 20, 30%. I should have said 70%. I wasn't really thinking. Off the shelf, it's right there off the shelf. And iPhones will save us, this really good. The iPhones and smartphones, they'll save us 20, 30 years. Save us from what? Just 20, 30 years. It's right off the shelf. Right there in Macy's on Friday, right there with the sales. The dresses, right there. It's right on the shelf. Just pull the technology off. We could all pull this off. It's very simple, but for the capitalist pigs. And Trump. Particularly Ivanka with her emails. If Ivanka hadn't been emailing the way she emails, then we'd be cutting carbon emissions by at least 30% now, right off the shelf. Go ahead.
The reason we don't do it is because we are still confused, blind, shrouded with hate, anger, racism, mommy issues.
You know, even when I ramble in absolute incoherence, I can always throw that word racism out there, and then all of a sudden I get applause, you know. I love that line. I've been practicing this all day. We're still confused, blind, shrouded with hate, anger, racism, mommy issues. Otherwise, we'd be pulling right off the shelf our carbon emissions technologies and be able to cut them by 30%, save the planet, and have the most magnificent global society that anybody's ever seen. But for Trump and the white folk out there, we'd really be an advanced society. This guy's such a clown. He's such an idiot. And nobody says it. Nobody's allowed to say it. I said it. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.